Expectations can be hard to manage, and I think the reason that many grounded players are disappointed in the Into the Woods update is their expectations were too high. After spending the last couple of days thinking about it, I know this is the case for me. In this video, I want to explain why my and perhaps your expectations were pretty high regarding this update. Before we begin, I want to thank all my channel members, especially the Overseer91 and Grey Knight who helped make videos like this possible. Let's get started. So what I want to do in this video is I want to touch upon the major things that were updated in the Hot and Hazy update and the Into the Woods update so far, and then do a side-by-side comparison to show you why I think perhaps the Hot and Hazy update set the expectations too high, and also why some people may be disappointed with the update in the Into the Woods public test server so far. So first things first, I want to look at the biomes that were changed. So as we know, in the Hot and Hazy update, we had the picnic table was updated. So the picnic table existed, but there was nothing on it but the beehive. The picnic table was fully populated. The sandbox was added and fully populated. The black anthill, which is down here between the sandbox and the trash heap, was fully populated with a lab. And then the trash heap, of course, was updated, as that didn't exist. So this entire side of the map, besides the picnic table, nothing was here. So these were all new assets added, terraforming, tons of work done there. And then in addition to that, the Haze Lab was revamped. So the Haze Lab in the Shroom and Doom update was added, or we could get into it. And it only had a couple of rooms, and basically the chip was in there. In the Hot and Hazy update, they completely redid it so that it was a full-out, complete lab. Not as big as the Hedge Lab, but probably similar in size to the Koi Pond Lab in terms of size. And they added new enemies inside of there. You could unlock a new mutation. So tons of new stuff there. It also ended up tying into getting to the new area over here because there was an entrance out here. So all in all, the Hot and Hazy update added quite a bit. And if you look at it on the map in terms of size, it is quite a bit of size in terms of being updated, and it's completely full. So like this side of the map is really densely populated. You're not really wandering through like a tons of open areas. Over here in the Haze, of course, there might be some open areas, but the Haze Lab is down here. But this area is pretty densely populated, so you're not walking like long distances without running into any enemies or anything new. And then also in addition to that, these areas did add some new effects. So like the sandbox has the sizzling effect, which if you're not wearing antlion armor or you don't have fresh defense on and you're not protecting yourself, you'll get the sizzling effect, which will start draining your HP really quickly. The trash heap has something similar to the Haze, but it's the rotten food gives off some kind of gas, and that is much more dangerous than the Haze, so you definitely need to protect yourself from that. So we had those two new status effects as well. Now looking at the Into the Woods update, what we got was the charcoal, the barbecue spill area, which is down here. Then we got the shed surroundings, what they're calling it, which is the areas up here and I guess over to here. And then we got the termite hill, which is underneath the tarp over here. So in terms of size, it does actually look like it's probably similar in size, maybe even larger. I'd say it's probably similar in size to the previous update. However, what you'll find here is this area seems to be far less densely populated. So there seems to be far less enemies other than the ladybug larva, which were added to ladybird larva, which were added to the game. There's not a lot of enemies in here. You could end up going a long distance of walking without really running into anything. And I just think that that's probably one of the things that so basically in this area, you can get through it really quickly. The Hot and Hazy update took several hours at best if you were fully prepared just to get through the Haze Lab, then proceeding through the trash heap, the black anthill, into the sandbox. You could do the picnic table at any time, but like just to get through all these areas, it took quite a bit of time. You had to prepare, and there was lots of dangers along the way. However, when I played the public test server so far for the Into the Woods update, I was able to do everything up here in less than 5 hours. And honestly, probably 2 of those hours was spent going back and forth. I did have a base set up on the retaining wall up here, but a couple times I did have to go all the way back to my main base, which was set up over here by the mysterious machine. So there was quite a bit of time traveling back and forth to repair stuff, to drop off, empty my inventory, to get other things I needed like food and stuff like that, because I kept running out of food and water and stuff like that. So that was a lot of time spent on that. So I think that might be one of the reasons people are disappointed. While this area, like I said multiple times, I really like what they did with this area. I like the terraforming, I like the terrain, I like all the canyons and stuff like that. Really cool. I think one of the issues people are having is the amount of time it takes to get through this area versus this area is just far less. And there's also some other things we're going to touch upon in just a minute that will probably just be a better example and also justify or strengthen this point of why this update feels like there's just not as much in terms of, not that it's not as high quality, it's definitely quality, it's just the quantity just feels like it's less just because of these factors. So next thing I want to look at is the new bugs. So in the Hot and Hazy update, we got 3 new infected bugs in the Haze area. We got the infected ladybug, the infected larva, and the infected gnat. Now, These are reskins of existing bugs that were already in the game. However, they do have different attack patterns that are noticeable. For example, the infected ladybug will shoot the strange spores at you. The larva can explode, and the infected gnats can. Well, I guess they're kind of really. I think they can. Can they not? Maybe they can knock your weapons out of your hand. I can't remember if it's them or the beefy ones. It's one or the other, but the infected gnats are like, whatever. But the infected ladybugs are pretty cool. They're probably my favorite enemy in the game right now because they're kind of like little tanks that walk around. They can do the regular ladybug attacks, but they can also shoot the little strange spores at you, kind of like they're a little tank. But then we also got, in addition to them, we got black ants and black soldier ants. Now, again, these are reskins of the red ants, but they do drop unique resources. So they kind of, even though they have the exact same model, they're just a different color and they pretty much have the same attack patterns. They were much tougher to defeat, and they dropped tons of new resources for new things that you can craft in the game, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. In addition to that, we also got a mini boss that was down in the Black Anthill, which was the assistant manager, who was actually pretty tough. Like it's a multi-phase fight, and it took me a couple tries to beat him. I went in kind of thinking he was going to be a pushover. He was absolutely not. We also got the sickly roly-polies, which were added down here in they were down in the trash heap area next to the sandbox and also one of the picnic tables. So there was one pretty much in each of the new areas that were updated. And then in addition to that, we got the antlions, of course, which they're the most densely populated enemy inside of the sandbox. So you got tons of antlions in here. Of course, you do have black ants that walk in here periodically, as well as there's a wolf spider in here. But the antlions were definitely they're brand new. They look like a brand new model. Maybe they used one of the existing models and just modified it. I don't know. But they're a brand new enemy that has different attacks. So you have some that burrow out of the ground and pop out at you. You also have the ones that are down in the pits that throw sand or black ants at you. So they were a totally new challenge to fight. Like the first time I fought them, I didn't know they threw stuff at you, and I got one shot and was completely devastated. Didn't really realize that was going to happen. So while that update had, I think it was like 8 new enemies plus the assistant manager, so 9 new enemies in total. Some of them were reskins, but the thing with the reskins was the black ants did drop resources for tons of new stuff. So looking at the new area's got actually more in total in terms of new enemies. So we have the termites and the termite soldiers, which you're going to find. Sometimes they're wandering out here by this little bike over here down into the grasslands, the shed surroundings area. They're predominantly found up on either the tarp or inside of the termite hill. And of course, they do drop resources. We're going to talk about those in just a second as well. We have the ladybirds, which you're going to find down in the grasslands mainly, or the shed surroundings. And the ladybugs, to me, were kind of disappointing. They're basically just ladybugs they're reskin ladybugs with different colors. People have said they have different attack patterns. I didn't really notice it because I was still able to kill them pretty quickly. And the most disappointing thing was they dropped the same parts as ladybugs. Now, I will say there is a chance that they're going to change this during the public test server, and I'm only going by what is up to this point. So there is room for them to change that. That would definitely be a welcome addition. We also have the ladybug larva, which are basically reskins of the regular larva, but they have more HP. They do give you sizzling. They will put a sizzling effect on you if you don't have antlion armor on fresh defense. So that is a little bit unique. And I feel like they act a little bit more aggressive and they have different attacks than the regular larva. But again, they drop the same resources as the regular larva. The only difference being that the new insects do also drop, I think it's bug gloop is what it's called, which is like a new crafting resource. So that's the only thing, but you can actually get those from the termites and the other new bugs that are in the game that drop other resources. So as of right now, until they make it where the ladybirds and the ladybird larva, if they don't drop new resources, I personally would recommend completely avoiding them. Maybe fight them one time just to do it, but if they don't add new resources for them, there's just no reason for me to fight them when I can just go fight a regular ladybug or a regular larva and get pretty much the same resources. Now, my favorite new insect they added was the black ox beetle. So there's 3 black ox beetles. They're pretty much found in this area here in the shed surroundings. You're going to find, I think, 2 down in the caverns and one, well, maybe they're all down in the caverns. There's 3 of them anyway that spawn from what I've seen. The black ox beetles have a brand new model. They drop unique resources. They have unique attack patterns. They're pretty beefy, so I really love the black ox beetle. I can't say anything bad about them so far. They did put the roly-polies into the game, so they're still the sickly roly-polies that are down in this area. I don't know if I mentioned they were sickly. These were the sickly roly-polies. Up here, they're the regular roly-polies. Now, the interesting thing is, though, the new roly-polies are basically the same as the sick, except they have more health, but they drop the same parts. So again, they're removing the crusty roly-poly armor, which we'll talk about in a minute, which was in the game in the Hot and Hazy update, and replacing with just regular roly-poly armor. But as of now, you can just kill the sickly roly-polies, which are easier to get the same resources to make the roly-poly armor as killing the stronger ones. So again, why fight the stronger ones when you can just fight the weaker ones and get the same parts? Then we also have the shield bug. The shield bug is found underneath the little porch deck area up here in the shed behind the fertilizer bag. This is a reskinned stink bug. It has I don't know if it has different attacks, honestly, because the couple times that I killed it, I basically just stood there and killed it with a bow and arrow because stink bugs are weak to arrows, so there's no reason to get close combat with them. They have a massively huge, they have a huge health bar. So I almost thought it was going to be a mini boss fight. They were not. It was actually pretty easy to kill, even though it had a big chunk of health. And initially, it just dropped the same resources as stink bugs. They have since patched it. They do drop a new new resource that's used to make a new item. So I like the fact that they did that. I still wish they would have made it have a drop a resource for a new shield, but at least it drops a new resource. So nothing really bad to say about that. Up on the patio area up here, the deck area up here, you're gonna have a little carpet that has a little floor mat that has the dust mites on it. That's where you're mostly gonna find the dust mites. I don't know. I don't think I've seen them wandering anywhere else. Actually, maybe I don't know. There might be dust mites elsewhere, but I think most of them are up here. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below, but most of them are up here on this floor mat. They are basically reskinned I would say they're reskinned Infectomites because they have a ranged attack like the Infectomites do. They're not that hard to deal with. The only issue with them is that they do really deteriorate your armor with their ranged attack. So there's a lot of them. I don't really have a problem with them. I think they're a little bit too beefy because it's kind of weird that a mite that size has as much health as it does. But anyway, in my opinion, they almost might be the hardest new enemies in the game. They might even be harder than the Black Ox Beetle just because you can get hit by a bunch of them at the same time and they just start destroying your armor, even though they don't really do much damage to you yourself. And then, of course, we have the Scarab. The Scarabs, I think I've seen there's 4 or 5 Scarab spawns around. They're these little green-looking bugs that run around. I've talked about those in previous videos. They drop a rare resource, so no problems with those. They actually have a unique mechanic where if you don't kill them fast enough, they will just burrow into the ground and get away. So I do like the fact that that exists. And then 2 other things that were added. One, let's talk about the first one because I want to save the last one for last, which is the one that I really wish they wouldn't have added. They added a Termite King, which is in the Termite Hill, and it is, I guess you could call it a mini boss, but it's not on the same level as the Assistant Manager in the fact that it's not like a multi-phased fight. They did buff them up a little bit because originally it was like they were easier to kill than the Termite soldiers, but they beefed them up a little bit, so he's a little bit harder to kill. So it's a mini boss fight, I would say. So that's cool. And he also does drop a unique resource now, which they also added. And last but not least is they added infected wolf spiders. Now these will only appear if you have the haze turned off. Initially, you had to actually turn the haze off for them to appear, and then they patched it so that if you already turned off the haze, they will appear. From what I've seen, this may change. They only can be the ones that are around the oak tree. Which, and again, like, I'm not a fan of spiders. I don't like spiders. I really wish they wouldn't add more spiders because I just don't like spiders in real life. But it's cool. I haven't fought one yet because I don't have the haze turned off in my world. I've heard that they are a pretty good fight, pretty fun fight. So they do drop the same resources as other wolf spiders, plus they drop the fungal growth. So I wish they would drop something like unique, maybe a higher tier, maybe, I don't know, something, a higher tier spider part or something like that. So spent a lot of time on these new bugs. So you can see there were a ton of new bugs added in this update. And I think the only thing that people were disappointed in, not so much the fact that they were reskins, but that a lot of them drop the same parts as existing enemies. They're just tougher to kill. So they have started addressing that with the green shield bug, and hopefully they'll address it with some of the other ones just so that they drop unique, and the Termite King, they did address that too. So the green shield bug and the Termite King have since had there was a hot patch that came out that they drop unique resources now, which is cool because I kind of think like if you're going to have stronger enemies, there should be a reason to fight them other than just fighting them, because you don't just want to waste the durability on your weapons and your armor and stuff like that fighting a tougher enemy for maybe the exact, if not just the exact same resources, maybe just a little bit more of those resources. So that's the bugs. Let's head on over real quick and talk about the armor. So the Hot and Hazy update added a bunch of new armors, full armor sets. So you got the full antlion armor set. You got the full, originally it was the crusty roly-poly set, and we got a full set of black ant armor. So 3 full sets of armor were added in the Hot and Hazy update. So that was 3 sets to unlock, 3 sets to get the parts for, 3 sets to try out, and figure out which ones you liked, what situations they were best to use for. So far in the Into the Woods public test server, the only thing we've gotten was the roly-poly armor has since been made. It's not crusty anymore, it's just regular roly-poly. It has had its stats changed a little bit. I think it's got more defense now. I think it was 4 and now it's 5, so it's got its stat defense buff. But essentially, you can just go kill the old roly-polies and just get better armor now. So, and I think they've said that the old roly-poly parts will be converted over to craft these. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But so basically, this was just they updated this armor, not new. The only new armor that's been added was this termite armor. And the fact that they're calling it termite armor and not a termite chest piece, I'm almost wondering if this is going to be just a single piece. It does require the parts from the Termite King, so not sure if they're going to get a full set of this. And to be completely honest, it's light, which I love, and it has a good defense for light armor. I'm not a big fan of the grass harvest speed and the rock harvest speed, because honestly, by the time you get this, you're probably going to not need these, because you can get Grassmaster and Rock Cracker. And if you have a higher tier chopping weapon or hammer, then you're just going to break stuff in like one hit anyway. So I don't really know if this matters that much. So maybe they can rework this. I really hope this turns into a full set. I'm not a big fan of having the single pieces because they don't really work well together. Like, this isn't really going to go that well with like the marksman's cap, or maybe I guess the might helmet, but the might helmet's super low defense. But anyway, so that's a big difference right there. We had 3 full armor sets in the Hot and Hazy update, and in the Into the Woods update, we only had 1 piece of an armor, and then they upgraded the roly-poly armor. Next up, real quick, let's take a look at the weapons that were added in each of the updates. So in the Hot and Hazy update, we got the Antlion Greatsword, the Salt Morningstar. So we got 2 new Tier 3 weapons. We got a new Tier 2 sword and the Black Ant Sword. We got the Black Ant Shovel, which is the Tier 2 shovel, which you need to gather new resources. And then we got the Black Ant Shield. So in total, we got 6 new things that were added in this update. And to unlock, like I said, when I was talking about before, the Black Ants drop stuff for a full set of armor, a weapon, a shield, and a tool. So the Black Ants, there's a reason to go fight them, because they drop tons of resources. They drop resources for tons of new things to kill, whereas the new insects you're going to see don't really do that much. So in the Into the Woods update, what we got was, we got the Spicy Coltana, which is a new Tier 3 sword, which is basically, now, these other weapons were they were not 100% unique, but they were different. At least the Salt Morningstar was. These are like 2-handed swords and stuff like that. The Spicy Coltana, while it looks completely different, it looks amazing, is a reskin of the Antlion Greatsword. You can see their stats are exactly the same damage, same speed. Only difference being this is locked to Spicy, so when you do upgrade it, you're going to get a little bit of extra damage because you're going to have to go the Mighty Path. But you can look, the cost of crafting it and upgrading it is far more expensive than the Antlion Greatsword. So if you have a Spicy Antlion Greatsword, you're probably going to be doing almost enough damage as the Spicy Coltana. So in reality, I would have much rather seen this be a spear or a dagger. And then aside from that, we got some new tools. We got the Black Ox Hammer, which is by far one of the coolest looking things in the game right now, weapons in the game right now. This is awesome looking. Although it doesn't really have much uses. I guess if you want to use it as attack, maybe. But the hammer's got their stun severely nerfed in this update. Termite Axe, cool looking axe. Like how this looks. It looks almost like a little axe you would see someone using in the woods, like a little lumberjack cutting down wood for their fireplace. I like this. So this is a Tier 3 axe. These are found from the termites. The Black Ox obviously found from the Black Ox. So I would like to see the Black Ox drop parts from more things than just this and a meal that they dropped. Like, it would be cool if there was a Black Ox armor, because they are basically the beefiest enemies in the game. So maybe they add Black Ox armor at some point in the future. And then beyond that, we have a couple of arrows. So we got the Splinter Arrow, which is new, and the Super Gas Arrows. These are the things that were added later after the initial public test server came out. You get these from the green shield bug. Drops resources for this. The only issue with there is that these are pretty strong. I did test them out. They put a huge gas cloud that lasts a long time. The only issue is they're crafted from splinter arrows, which are, splinters are easy to get. The dust mite fuzz is a pain in the butt, but splinter arrow is not that terribly hard to craft. But you can only get you only get 3 of these super stink sacks from each of the green shield bugs. And for what I've seen, there's only 1 on the map. That means you're only going to be able to craft 9 of these at a time. And I don't know if it respawns every day or every other day. So you're looking at it's going to take you quite a while to get a stack of these things. And then, of course, once you use them, when you pick them up, they just turn back into splinter arrows. So it's not like they stay at this level. So in my opinion, these are while there are new weapon options, they're not really new weapons. So the Hot and Hazy update did have more weapons, in my opinion. Although in terms of looking at it, they both had 5 things added, but these are just different uses for the ranged weapons. All right, next up, let's talk about some other things that changed, which were the biggest thing, the thing I like the most in the Hot and Hazy update was the ability to upgrade ourselves and our weapons. So let's talk about the milk molars. The Hot and Hazy update added 52 milk molars. Now, this is where we get to the point where the content in the Into the Woods update feels like it might be a little thin, and the reason for that might be not that the area of the map that wasn't, like I said, the 2 areas look like they're about similar in size. The number of milk molars added was 52, but they weren't just in the new area. We had milk molars in a bunch in the koi pond, a bunch in the grasslands, and a bunch in the hedge, and they also put some in the haze. So the Hot and Hazy update introduced that mechanic of the milk molars, which you use to upgrade your character stats and carrying capacity and stuff like that. But it also forced you to go into the areas of the map that you've already explored to go find them. So it made you search the entire map. Now, in this update, we've only gotten 12 so far. They had 10 initially, and they added 2 since then. But they're all located in this little area, and you can gather them all within the course of probably like 10 to 15 minutes if you know exactly where they are. Now, there are a couple that are inside of the Termite Hill, so if you haven't completed the Termite Hill, those might take a little bit longer. But the other 10 you can find are pretty easy to get to. They're pretty much out in the open. They're easy to see. I do have a video on them if you're interested. But they're very, like, it's much easier to get them, and it's going to take far less time. So while I appreciate that they added more, and I love that they did that, I would have also liked to have seen, I think if they would just added a couple more, sprinkle them, maybe they'll still do this, sprinkle a couple more in the other existing areas, like throw another 1 or 2 in the hedge, 1 or 2 in the grasslands, and 1 or 2 in the pond or something like that, or the haze. That would be cool, even under here, under the deck, something like that, or up on the deck, something like that. They could add them, just so it gives you a reason to go back to these areas and search them, and would add more content to the game. Now, aside from that, this new update only added a single burgle chip, whereas the Hot and Hazy update added 3. We had the picnic table chip, we had the chip in the sandbox, and we had the chip in the Black Anthill. The Black Anthill also has a lab. This new update does not have a lab. So the new update only has a single chip. It's in the Termite Hill. This is no spoilers, because when you load into the map, it's going to show you where they are on the map now. I honestly think that should not be a thing. I don't know why they show where they are, because then it kind of spoils the fun of going and finding them. I think it would be better if they actually, Burgle gave you like a hint to where they were, and you had to go find them. But anyway, I digress. So with that, there's only 1 new chip to unlock, which you're going to get pretty quickly when you go through the Termite Hill. Because like I said, you can get through the Termite Hill in probably about a half an hour or so, depending on how well prepared you are. At worst, it'll take you an hour, because there are a lot of termites. But when you go down to Burgle over here to the swap shop, the Hot and Hazy update had 14 new things added to the Burgle swap shop to purchase. That cost a lot of raw science. They did rework the raw science in that update too. So some things were made cheaper, some things were made more expensive. But for the average person, you probably weren't going to have enough raw science to just go outright buy all that stuff. I had it because I had enough raw science to buy most of it, because I had been doing the daily quests every day just to stock up on it. And I was able to buy them all. But for the average player, you're going to have to spend time going and collecting the raw science just to unlock them. So it might take you a week or 2 in-game just to get the raw science from the daily quest just to buy them all. The new update only has 3 new options, and with the 1 chip and the 3 new options, I think it only costs a total of $8,500 to buy all 3 of the new options. You can actually get enough raw science, at least I did, from this area up here. Seemed like it had enough new raw science with turning in the chip and then doing the other stuff. Maybe you have to do a daily quest or something, but I had enough raw science to buy all the new stuff in 1 day. So essentially, instead of having the content, again, spreading the content out over the course of a couple play sessions, or maybe a week or 2, maybe longer if you're just playing it casually a couple hours a week, you can basically get all the new stuff unlocked immediately. Now, whether or not you can use it is a different story, but that's that. Next up, let's take a look at the mutations. So our status is over here. I do not have them unlocked on this world, but the Hot and Hazy update added 4 new mutations. The new update so far has 0. I don't know if any are going to be added. They haven't really hinted at it, but those 4 new mutations did take time to unlock. 1 you had to kill the Broodmother to get. There was 1 from the Haze Lab, and then the other 2 were Parry Master and Blade Master, which you had to unlock they had 3 tiers, so it took a little bit of time to do that. Again, that's just more stuff that's giving you reason to play it. If you're a completionist or you just want to have everything maxed out, it's going to take you a couple of hours possibly to get those all unlocked and get them upgraded to max level. The new update does not have any of that. Now, looking at the other stuff, there's some miscellaneous stuff I want to talk about real quick before we get to the side-by-side comparison. I think I've made a pretty strong case up to this point, but the side-by-side is really going to show it. So a couple of things they did in the Hot and Hazy update where they completely reworked armor. So you're going to notice that armor now in that update they're either light, medium, or heavy. Those all have different effects on your stamina regeneration rate. So all the armor sets have that. They also added weapon upgrades. So the weapon upgrade, you can now you're allowed to upgrade you were able to upgrade your weapons instead of just them being base damage. You were able to upgrade them up to level 7 in the Hot and Hazy update, which was awesome. This was like like I said, along with the Milk Maulers, one of my favorite things was upgrading weapons. They also added creature resist. So for example, the Mint Mace does mint damage by default, and it also has it's a club, so it does generic damage. So some insects are weak against fresh, some are strong against fresh. So that added another dynamic in terms of like facing all the insects in the game and figuring out which was good against which and which one wasn't. So again, tons of new stuff to test out. I probably spent like 20 hours, 15 to 20 hours testing every combination against every insect just to figure out what was best. They also added brain power, which is more for new players, where it'll unlock different crafting recipes before you might get to them. So that is what it is. I think that's perfectly fine. And they did tweak it a lot. They did a lot of work with it because initially it was way too easy to get through it, but they did make it where it seems like it's more balanced at this point. They also added meals. Let's see if we can see meals in here. So meals were added. Are meals under food? Yeah, meals were added in the Hot and Hazy update as well. So the oven was added in the Shroom and Doom update where you can make mushroom bricks and slurries. They added the meals. So we added all these meals except for the Lack Ox Burger were added in that update. So tons of new meals to buy from Burgle, to try out and eat and see which ones work best for you. And then last but not least were the mutations were reworked. So while I don't have a bunch of them, like I don't have them all unlocked on here to show you, but like the Assassin, Barbarian, Javelineer, all the ones that were originally gave extra damage to the different weapon types were all changed to do different things like slowing enemies, stunning them, stuff like that. So again, another thing to test out was like which mutations are good now. So those are all the things that were in the Hot and Hazy update. Now let's take a look at what was added, the miscellaneous things that were added in this update, Into the Woods update. So one thing you're going to see here on the screen is going to be this little, I guess it's gray, whitish bubble here. This is from the survey stations. So they added survey stations to each of the field stations. So when you go into a field station, after you've finished the hedge lab, so you have to finish the hedge lab in order to do this, but if you've already done it, they're retroactively there. Once you've finished the hedge lab and turned on the power, you'll have access to the survey stations. What they do is they let you scan for resources in a given area. So let's say I wanted to know where all the wolf spiders are. I could scan for wolf spider parts, and it's going to show me where they spawn. Not necessarily where they are at the time, but when it scans, it'll show you where they are, and then they can move around, obviously, but it'll give you an idea where they are. Now, for resources that are locked into place, like quartzite, stuff like that, or even a crow feather, it'll show you where the crow feather fell. It'll show you where the quartzite is. This is a pretty cool addition, especially considering you have to unlock it a little bit later on, and it'll help people get resources that they might have trouble finding. So I'm definitely cool with that. They did add custom game options, which are allowing you to change all the settings in the game, so you can change the difficulty. Now, once you set it, I believe you can't change it after that. So you can change hunger, drain, thirst, whether the bugs attack you or don't, whether they're there or not. So I like that idea because that gives people the freedom to do things. I really like it for the fact that if I want to test something, I can go into creative mode, have all the recipes unlocked, be able to max everything out, and be able to just test everything out without having my weapons break. So that's definitely a cool feature for that. They added peeper mode, so we can look at peeper mode real quick. Everybody has that unlocked at the beginning. Peeper mode lets you look through like you have binoculars and lets you see in. Another cool feature, will I use it? I'm not sure. You can also add waypoints on the map using the peeper feature, I believe. I think so we press a waypoint, we can put a waypoint like there. But you can also go to the map, and I think you can remove the waypoint like this, and I can also just put a waypoint like right here. Oh, I guess this is where your bubble is. So you can do waypoints in 2 different ways. So that's a pretty cool feature. They also improved the data page. So if we go into the data page here, they did a total revamp on this. So you're going to see products and places. I guess I don't have everything unlocked yet. There's a bunch of pages here if you play through the game. So you're going to see lots of things in here that you've unlocked: the scabs, the tapes, the recordings. I'm not sure. You might be able to go back and re-listen to them all. So that's definitely a cool feature. Status effect displays. So like if you, like right now it says I have the quickness. It's probably, I don't know if that's going to show it to me on the screen now. But like let's say for example I get hit by a dust mite. It's going to show like little spinning circles down in the bottom corner. They're going to show that I have some kind of status effect. I love that because I like to know when the status effects are there. Then they made some combat change. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I've already talked about it a lot. Combat changes, not a big fan of. A lot of other people aren't a big fan of it. So the gist of it is your first attack. So normally your first attack before this update, your first attack would do 100, 100, 100. So let's say you had a weapon. We'll just look at a weapon and say, okay, the Mint Mace says it's going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 damage. That means every time you swing it, it's going to do 5.5 damage unless it crits. Then it would do double. In the new update, your first hit's only going to do half. So it's going to do like 2.75. The next hit's going to do the full damage, which is going to be the 5.5. And the one after that's going to do 150%, so that's going to be like 7 point something. So each hit in the 3-hit combo is going to do differing amounts. I'm not a big fan of that, but I mean, it is what it is. If they don't change it, I'll just adapt to it. The biggest thing for me was the weapon upgrades and the repair costs. So In the Hot and Hazy update, they added the ability to upgrade weapons. While they were somewhat expensive, they were pretty manageable. Just getting a weapon to level 7, a single weapon, didn't take that much time. However, in this new update, you're going to need to get lots of more resources to upgrade them, and you're also going to notice that your durability of your weapons and gear, specifically like when you go through this new area, there's a good chance you're going to have to repair your armor and weapons multiple times just because they're going to break much faster. Now, I know they're aware of the durability issue, and I fully expect them to change that, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. So that were those things. The one last thing I wanted to touch upon before showing you the side-by-side comparison, and I already talked about it a little bit, was the labs. So the Hot and Hazy update revamped the lab in the haze area, which is right here. It added the Black Anthill lab, and it added the Sandbox lab outpost, which, to be honest, is just like a single room, so not that big, but maybe they're going to expand upon it later. They did not add a new lab in the Termite Hill yet. Maybe it'll come. Maybe it'll be under the shed because there is that giant hole under the shed that we haven't been able to get into. Or maybe this is, I don't know. Maybe that terraforming was this part going down there. I don't know. But there's no new lab in here, so there's, like, to me, there's no more, you're not progressing the story, even though the story's not technically in the game. You're not getting any more tapes. You're not actually, like, feeling like you're learning more about the story because there was no new lab added. And we all kind of thought, well, at least I did, that this lab outpost in the sandbox was going to be expanded upon, kind of how they did with the Haze lab, as well as there's a tunnel under here under the sandcastle. Kind of thought that was going to be unlocked as well. Again, these things could still happen during the public test server, but these were just the things that I was going into this update thinking were going to happen, as well as the entire shed being updated, which, again, this gets back to the expectations. When they teased that this area was being updated, and we saw that they had done terraforming under the shed, we all assumed, and we all know what happens when you assume things, that not only was the area in front of the shed getting updated, but the entire shed was getting updated. Again, this may or may not happen, but that's just kind of where our expectations were. So now let's really quickly take a look at a side-by-side comparison, and I think you'll see why I and maybe you or maybe people you know are not exactly happy with this update. Even though it is a good update, it's just not as good as the Hot and Hazy update. So this is the tail of the tape, as I'm calling it, and what it does is it's a quick summary of everything that was changed between the two updates. So the first one's days between public test servers. So the Hot and Hazy update public test server opened up 112 days after the Shroom and Doom update public test server. Into the Woods was 104 days after the Hot and Hazy. So as you can see, similar timelines here. That's why I think most of us expected there to be more content in this Into the Woods update. I think honestly what ended up happening was the Into the Woods update focused a lot on quality of life stuff, polishing up some of the things in the UI and stuff like that, and not as much on actual gameplay content, which is fine because that stuff needs to happen. The new biomes, here I'm saying 4, that was the sandbox, the picnic table, the Black Anthill, and the trash heap. The +1 is because they revamped the haze area, so it's still 4. The new area has 3, but like I said, because they're not really that densely populated, there's no labs or anything or like places to go down. Actually, the shed surroundings does have a hole that's blocked, so maybe that'll be open in the future. But in terms of like overall numbers, it's about the same, but this area just took much longer to explore because there was labs in it and more stuff to do. New bugs, Hot and Hazy had 8, Into the Woods had 10. Already talked about this. It feels like the Hot and Hazy update, most of the insects outside the infected ones kind of like had a purpose. Like the black ants gave you resources for tons of different things. While the new insects, while there's a lot of them, they don't really give you a lot of new stuff to craft. And kind of like once you craft that new stuff, you're done with it, and that's it. New mini bosses, 1-to-1, although I would say the assistant manager fight is a much more, I don't want to say, it's just a more challenging fight than the Termite King. The Termite King's kind of like a mini boss. Just like a slightly above, it's probably like a tier 3 enemy instead of being like a mini boss. New armor, we had 3 full sets in the Hot and Hazy. We only had 1 piece so far in the Into the Woods. New weapons, 5 in the Hot and Hazy, 3 new weapons in the Into the Woods plus the 2 new arrows. So I guess you could say they're even, but in terms of being able to use them, I mean, 5 new weapons is like a big difference than 3 plus 2 new arrows. And it also took a lot longer to unlock these new weapons, whereas the new update, you were able to get all this new stuff in just a couple of hours. And here's the final part of the tail of the tape. Milk molars in the Hot and Hazy update, there were a total of 51 milk molars. I think I might have said 52 during the video. It was 29 plus, yeah, it was 51. So earlier I said 52, it was actually 51. 51 total added, and then there were 12 in the Into the Woods. So aside from the fact that there were just more, they were also spread across the entire map. So getting all these took far longer than getting these. That's another thing where it's like just one more thing adding up to the pile of things while there's just not as much in this update. 3 burgle chips to 1 and 14 burgle swaps to 3. Again, just unlocking all these things for the average person is going to take quite a while. Getting all the chips is challenging because you couldn't just walk in. Like, you can just go get the termite, the chip in the wood pile right off the bat if you've already done everything else. Whereas these, you had to go you had to go through the trash heap, into the black anthill. You had to beat the assistant manager. Then you had to go to the sandbox. You could get the picnic table one at any time, but you did have to find a special key for that. So, like, it was just it took a lot longer and was more challenging to get these burgle chips and to unlock all this stuff than it did the new stuff. There were 4 new mutations in the Hot and Hazy update, as well as a ton of reworks on those mutations. The new one has none, with only 2 reworks. The miscellaneous things we've already talked about, so I'm not going to spend much time on this. The armor reworks, the weapon upgrades, creature resist, brain power, all things that added a lot of more content to the game, a lot more things to test out and try. The new one added survey stations, custom game options, peeper mode, and UI updates. Other than the survey stations, everything, all these other things, and then there's the other quality of life things are all available right at the start. So, in my opinion, the other thing is here, the one thing I haven't talked about is the Hot and Hazy update made me want to restart the game. I'm not usually a fan of restarting and playing through the same content multiple times, but the Hot and Hazy update, I was like, well, they changed all this stuff with the upgrades and stuff like that, with the armor, with the weapons, and they reworked the armor. So I'm gonna go back and start over and see how everything feels going back through it. That gave me a solid 2 to 3 weeks of new content to go through to play or play time, because I went back and did everything over again. Even though I knew how to do it, it still took time, and I was able to try stuff out. This new update didn't really change anything other than the survey stations, which you turn on by going into the hedge lab and completing it. I already had them unlocked. I'm not going to go back and start all over just to turn well, I'm probably going to do it because I have a YouTube channel, but the average person, I don't expect to have a reason to start over. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend starting over right now if you're just looking to get the new content out, because you're just going to be doing the same old stuff, except there's going to be more of a grind because it takes longer to upgrade things, and you're going to have to be repairing things more often. So I really wish this update would have had the armor upgrades, because that would have gave me a reason to start over instead of like making all the changes to weapons. I do agree they did need some adjustments and balancing. I think they should have just left them at level 7 and just had armor upgrades be added to this, and then just sprinkle some milk molars around the map somewhere else, and bam, you have double the content right there. Instead, the Hot and Hazy update, I think, like I said, I feel like the new update is about a quarter of the Hot and Hazy update. So I know I talked a lot here, but I wanted to make sure I covered everything that changed and just give my reasoning on why I think people were a little bit disappointed. Again, this update was not bad. It just wasn't as good as the Hot and Hazy update. I'd say it's probably on par with the Shroom and Doom update. And again, I had just started playing the game again right before the Shroom and Doom update, so when that came out, I was still playing through the other stuff, and it gave me a lot to do. Had I been playing all the way through, I probably wouldn't have been as high on the Shroom and Doom update. But I think the gist of this all is that the Hot and Hazy update was absolutely it was the best update so far. It might be the best update the game ever gets. It has set the expectation, the bar so high that any update that comes after it is going to have trouble matching it. And I don't know if that's fair or unfair, but that's just how I feel. And that's why I'm kind of disappointed. While I do disagree with the weapon changes, the upgrades, and the costs like that, I can deal with that if they don't decide to change it. I'll suck it up and deal with it. I'm not happy about it. My biggest gripe is the fact that that there's just not that much to do in this update, and that based on their current schedule, we're going to probably have to wait until March or April, probably April, for the next update, and how much content's going to be in that. So I guess I should just lower my expectations and not expect to have a content dump like the Hot and Hazy update going forward, because they are going back and tweaking things and changing things. I do hope they do some changes to the beginning of the game just to give reason to go back through it. Of course, I'm going to play back through it at some point, and I'll probably do it now anyway, because like I said, I have a YouTube channel. If I didn't, there'd be zero chance I'm going to replay through it again. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Maybe this answers why, maybe this gives people more reason, or they can understand why I'm coming from where I'm coming. I don't hate the developers. I love this game. I want it to succeed, and I'd love to be able to play it for years to come. And I'm just not happy with this update. It's an okay update. It's just not great like the Hot and Hazy was. So that's all I had to say. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, hit the like button and consider subscribing for more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.